bucket of a 980M wheel loader, and I can't wait to learn more about the hydraulics and electronics that give me the lift I need.
Thanks, Robin. We're back in the classroom today. We're going to talk about hydraulics and electronics and how we can make simple machines work for us. And we're going to use hydraulics today. And here we have a simple machine. It's got a couple levers, and it also has a hydraulic unit, simple hydraulic unit connected to it. Now these mechanisms here we use to displace oil. And what displacement is moving oil from one section of the machine to the other section of the machine. Now I want to point out another thing that gets confusing to a lot of people. Everybody thinks that the pump is what creates the pressure that makes all of our hydraulics work. In all actuality, it's the resistance of the pressure or of the pump that creates the pressure. So the heavier load we have in the bucket, the more pressure it's going to create. So there's limits to that pressure. So if we have too much pressure in the bucket, our machines are set up safely so that we can't lift too much and cause damage to the operator or the machine. So let's show just a little bit about displacement, what I'm talking about. In this machine, we have a fluid in this end of the cylinder, and we're simply going to push the fluid to move the bucket, and it does it in both directions. And you can see displacement is represented very clearly here. So we're displacing oil from this cylinder to this cylinder, which would be the tank. And I'll displace it again and show you how it moves. Very basic, very simple. And we're going to go out in a few minutes and we're going to talk about this very same process on our machines in the Caterpillar world. I want to just basically run back through electronics because electronics or electricity and hydraulics work very similar. So if you understand how when you flip the switch, what the electrons do when that switch gets connected, you can understand how your hydraulic system works as well. Electrons move through a conductor. Hydraulic fluid moves through a hose or a line so that we can relate those two different systems, but they work very similar. Resistance in hydraulics is made by the bucket. Resistance in electricity is something that we really don't want. But if we look at a simple light bulb, the resistance is what's creating that light to illuminate. And that's how we're getting electricity to do work for us. When we add resistance or a load to the bucket, that's what creates the pressure. That's what our machine uses that resistance for. And I do want to point out that resistance in electronics can create some really nasty things like heat. If we have too much heat in our electronic system, it will burn up, it will catch on fire. Heat does the very same thing in our hydraulic world. If we have too much heat, we can do severe damage to our machine. So it's important for us to keep that resistance low, to be able to engineer or design our machines and understand what that machine is going to be used for so they can work efficiently and safely for our industry. So here we are in the lab, and you can see I have the prop that we used in the classroom, and I want to compare it to what one of our actual machines here at Caterpillar that we have. You can see we have our cylinders on the prop. We also have our big cylinder here and a big cylinder here. And those are controlled by what is termed as a directional control valve. And this is where the magic happens. So the information that we get from inside the cab when the operator is moving the levers goes through a machine control unit or a machine computer, so to speak. And that computer tells the oil or these valves when to open and when to close to move the oil to the cylinders to lift our objects or to do work for us. And that's basically where all the information comes from. The computer goes through these valves and we're displacing oil from the valve. We have our tank, goes through from the tank through the valve to the cylinders. And then once it's done doing the work, it comes back to the tank again and it starts the movement all over again. So here we are in the cab of the machine, and this is where the operator manipulates these levers to move the machine, to make the machine do work. Now these two levers here will run the bucket and the boom and the stick to make our machine have its lifting movements, and we can also swing the bucket left and right with these levers. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about drive systems and how we can use hydraulics to propel the machine forward and backwards, and that's what these two levers are going to do. So stay tuned, we're going to talk about drivetrains next.